most dramatic courtroom moments of all time. It's no news that courtrooms can be intense and emotional places where lawyers and judges can clash over legal issues and decisions. But on one fateful day in 2014, things got way out of hand in a courtroom in Brevard County, Florida. Judge John C. Murphy, a former judge in Brevard County, Florida, made headlines in 2014 for his fallout with Andrew Weinstock, an assistant public defender. Judge Murphy, who was trying to clear up his schedule, suggested that Andrew waived his right to a speedy trial for his client. However, Weinstock would have none of that, and he blatantly refused to do as John suggested, saying that he had the right to defend his client. This decision upset Judge Murphy, who then asked Weinstock to sit down, saying that he would handle the situation. When Weinstock refused, stating that he had a right to stand and defend his client, Judge Murphy became agitated and eventually challenged Weinstock to a physical altercation. Before that, Judge Murphy had said that he would aim at the public defender if he had a rock.
If I had a rock, I would throw it at you, right?
He then follows Weinstock out of the courtroom, and although the cameras didn't capture the fight, they were heard yelling at each other. Finally, a deputy intervened and separated them. Shortly after, Judge Murphy could be seen entering the courtroom with a welcoming applause and cheers from the entertained defendants. He took a few minutes to catch his breath and continued the courtroom's proceedings without Weinstock to interrupt him. Weinstock was most likely unaware that Judge Murphy was an ex-military personnel, a United States Army colonel to be precise. He served with the Special Forces in various countries and won the Bronze Star and 2 meritorious awards. However, following the incident, Judge Murphy was fired right after his actions were deemed appalling by the Florida Supreme Court. Next up is the intense drama that unfolded between Michael Madison, a convicted serial killer, and Van Terry, the father of one of his victims. Michael Madison's crimes were nothing short of heinous, and in 2013 he was arrested and charged with the murders of 3 women. A decomposed body was found in trash bags in a garage he owned in East Cleveland, Ohio. And after further investigation, 2 more were found. The victims, Shatisha Sheely, Angela Deskins, and Sherelda Terry, were all young African-American women. As a child, Madison had a terrible upbringing. He had an abusive mom who allowed her boyfriend to also abuse him. However, it was the events of the trial that caught the attention of the media and the public. Van Terry, the father of Sherelda Terry, was delivering a victim impact statement. He then looked at Madison, expecting to see some remorse, but instead, he saw Madison smirking, and in a very shocking moment, Terry lunged at Madison and started attacking him. The courtroom erupted in chaos, but luckily, the deputies were on their guard and quickly separated the duo and led Terry out of the courtroom without filing charges against him. Madison's trial began on April 4th, 2016, and he was found guilty of 3 counts of aggravated murder, which was later increased to 14 counts upon further investigation. Judge Nancy McDonnell of the Cuyahoga County Common Pleas Court presided over his case and followed the jury's recommendation, sentencing Madison to death on the 2nd of June, 2016.
We therefore unanimously find that the sentence of death should be imposed upon the defendant, Michael Madison.
The next story is that of 22-year-old Tanner Jacobson and 28-year-old Cody Howard, who had fled from the courtroom during their trial. They were arrested for driving on suspended licenses and were initially going to be sentenced to 30 years in jail if found guilty. However, a series of events happened that ultimately increased the period of time that they would spend in jail. While waiting in court, they got the idea of fleeing from the court and their already sealed fate, except that it wasn't so much of a smart idea for many reasons.
We were sitting there on the benches together, and He's like, I'm gonna run.
First, they were in handcuffs. Second, it's almost impossible to run from the law. And 3, there were people in the room, a flight of stairs, and many turns they'd have to take. So, after agreeing, they made a run for it. But they had never imagined that the judge who presided over their case, Judge R.W. Buzzard, would chase them. Immediately he saw them running, he took off his robes and fiercely chased them. Howard and Jacobson had made it to the final floor, but just before Howard could run through the emergency exit, Judge Buzzard grabbed and pulled him back. Jacobson, on the other hand, had made it through the exit but was caught only about 4 blocks away, and their attempted escape earned them a new charge of second-degree escape, and Howard was sentenced to over 3 years for being the mastermind of the escape and his other charges, while Jacobson's sentence was extended from 30 days to 1 year and a day. The video went viral, and in an interview, Jacobson stated that he didn't know why he decided to run away. Howard, on the other hand, said that he didn't run from the courtroom to be free, but because he wanted to get well. Next, we have Jacob Larson, a man from Michigan who had been convicted for violating a personal protection order. He had stalked his classmate from middle school for over a year after they had reconnected on Facebook. He had convinced himself that she was his soulmate and made several visits to her workplace, putting things all over her car before she filed a restraining order on him. However, despite the initial order to stay away from her, Larson continued contacting the woman, sending her about 22 messages on Facebook, so he was charged to court. The hearing began with the judge, John McBain of Jackson County Circuit Court, asking Larson a few questions. But Larson repeatedly interrupted the judge and made several disrespectful comments, stating that his classmate was instigating because she had supposedly made several posts that were directed at him. Even after he was sentenced to 45 days in county jail, he refused to acknowledge the sentence and accused the judge of being too close to the woman. This forced the judge to increase his sentence to 93 days and threatened to increase it to a year in county jail. He refused to be handcuffed and made to fight with the court security, but the judge was not going to have any of that. He took off his robe, stepped down from the bench, and physically held Larson down and requested that he should be tased. Last on our list is Alan McCarty Jr., who was sentenced to 20 years in jail for threatening to kill a circuit judge, Stasha Warren. He believed that Judge Warren was responsible for making him lose custody to his kids in a case between him and the mother of his children. He made a phone call to the police in a fit of anger to report a future crime and threatened to pull a gun on Judge Warren. The police traced the call, arrested McCarty, and charged him to court.
Warhurst.
Yeah, I want to report a crime that's about to happen.
What do you mean a crime that's about to happen?
Yeah, there's about to be a crime that's going to happen if my kids don't come back to me, you stupid bitch. Because your stupid judges don't want to bring people to courtrooms. I got a gun pointed at your building.
Sir, what is going on?
Who the you calling, sir? You where's your Judge Warren at? You gonna bring out in handcuffs and I'm gonna execute that right in the street. I'm letting you know I'm gonna shoot.
However, McCarty's uncouth behavior didn't stop. He rained curses on Judge Foxman, who presided over his case, refusing to answer any questions and provocatively inviting Judge Foxman to perform oral sex on him. Judge Foxman declined and threatened to duct tape McCarty's mouth if he didn't stop using foul language. However, this was nowhere near enough to tame McCarty, as he continued on with his disrespectful behavior until he was dragged and removed from the courtroom and placed in an adjacent room with one-way glass. Still, that didn't stop him. He continued cursing the judge and making provocative remarks toward his attorney and his wife. This forced the judge to add an extra 10 days to McCarty's sentence, charging him with the use of profanity and curses. So, justice was finally served. This is a victory for the justice system, for Judge Warren and Judge Foxman, and for anyone who has been a victim of threats and violence. And for those who believe they're above the law, justice will prevail.